Hi, I'm Gary Allen, and welcome to the marshlands off the Intercoastal Waterway. Today our project is in a backyard setting. Our subdivision has been built up high in order to avoid the marsh and the short backyards on a steep slope. That's our challenge. We invite you to stay with us as we create a backyard designer's landscape. I initially think of the existing vegetation here. I mean, the palm trees, the pines, even the marsh. Now, this is not tidal, so we don't have to worry about tidal water here. But if you go back and reflect on before the bulkhead began, we had this short backyard with this rolling slope that's really somewhat hard to navigate on. A very short backyard, like we mentioned. If the grass was wet and slippery, it could be somewhat dangerous to even mow. Well, this is our plan. Basically, to come in with a bulkhead material. Now, in this case, the choice is wood and very well constructed. We'll catch up with our contractor in a little bit. Maybe he can kind of tell us what's going on here. But your choice, again, are block and brick and all different types of surface materials. And so we have a lower deck in order to extend the backyard entertainment area, if you will. Maybe an upper wall will be needed for grade transition close to the house, but a brick paver patio and landscape, even lighting, is going to turn this into a backyard asset for the homeowners and the property here. Well, the bulkhead, this is the lower deck. It changes and rises up there at the corner. Let's go look at that. Mason has got just about the whole cap on the wall, which really tells us what? That backfill is going to be the next logical step. And we can talk about the soil here that we've used. This is kind of a silty, almost like a clay. It's a very fine soil type, and you see it'll hold its shape. Now, moisture, it's nice and wet right now, and that's okay. Rather than a sand and worrying about percolating the water downward, this will compact really well, and that's what we want. So in essence, we're not that concerned about draining the water down and out through some way. We'll use sheet flowing action, and we'll taper the grade gradually and have it go over the cap or over the wall, if that makes sense. So again, a clay or something that'll compact better can act as something really stable for underneath the bulkhead. And we may come in with an improved soil to do our landscape with. And when you're doing a bulkhead like this, well, it's a good idea to consider, will you need water or irrigation to come down through the bulkhead at any point along the way? I was just talking to the electrician about putting us a stub out for 110 over there by the palm tree for some additional lighting. And here we've stubbed out for low voltage lighting in this section. Now, what I want to do, and just take a look out here at this beautiful marsh. At nighttime, except in a full moon, that's going to be just black. So I want to bring in some lights that'll really make this a background picture or focal point every night you desire. I think it'll help, again, give a nice setting and just an elongation to the picture of the view here. That'll look great. Well, I mentioned the two lower bulkhead. This is where it comes into what we consider a higher deck. We still have to make this transition with stone and steps over there. But wow, I mean, it feels like there's a swimming pool going in here. You see where the guys have used what they call dead men, or pulled these rods in, and they'll tie those together with a big bunch of concrete and really hold extra support for the wall for long-term construction. There's, again, quite a transition, 4.5, almost 5 feet, and plants will help soften the lower deck and the upper deck together. But when we get this backfilled and get it landscaped, I think the mass will somewhat shrink. We can use landscape to soften that. It'll look great.
nicer.
Friends, I wanted to catch up with Mason Morris, who does bulkheads and docks and did our construction here for the bulkhead. We look at this and it looks really good, but what about all the hard work to get this installed, Mason?
Well, we take the homeowner's idea first. I come out here and meet with the homeowner, and a lot of times they'll have a small sketch or something, their idea down on paper.
Greg did, I know.
Greg did a very good job, and it made it easy for me in the design of this, actually. We started by establishing a grade off the patio there.
Okay.
And what we did, gave it a little bit of downslope, so he's got a little bit of grade from his water runoff here.
Sure.
And then just kind of radiused it around. We use the corner of the house here to create somewhat of a circle, and that's what established where we set the post at.
You got the two levels here, but evidently the upper deck goes first because
Yes.
it ties into it.
That's exactly right. It kind of creates the starting point for what we created down here below.
We weren't really out here, but I can imagine, again, the efforts getting your downposts in was still quite a bit of work.
In this tight area, yeah, it was a little tricky. We used a small machine to get these down on the ground, about 6 feet, like I say. And actually, once these are in the ground, everything comes out of the ground. It becomes a little bit easier.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because they're all tied together with your wood, and then you start building your side wall, huh?
Mm-hmm. You've got your whalers, which are these components right here. And what that does is hold your cribbing, which actually takes the load.
Uh-huh.
And then you have a filter fabric on the back side of this.
I
right
noticed that. In any particular mill, or, I mean...
Well, I don't know the
fabric?
exact mill, but it is a high quality. There is different grades of
Okay.
this. We try to use the tighter woven mesh.
Okay.
It's UV protectant, and it's non-biodegradable, of course.
Now, I was stating too earlier that we're not so worried about downward percolation of water. In a heavy rain, it'll probably come right over the top of the bulkhead. Is that fair to say?
In a small area like this, and with the grade that we have here, yes, a lot of the actual, if we had a downpour, would run over the top. But any light rain or hose action or anything like that would kind of percolate down and then seep through the wall as the ground.
So we have the
falls
weeping
away.
too of it. Of
Exactly.
Good, very good. About your tie-ins there, can you just kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, here we have a galvanized rod that actually goes through the post, and this comes back to the back side of the wall, 10, 12 feet, depending on the height of the wall.
Okay.
Okay. We bend a hook in the rod, and then we pour either pour concrete or use bag concrete, which is what we're using in this case here.
You brought them all to one area where they kind of tie in together.
Exactly.
That'll be concrete.
Makes it one big mass, and what that does is keep the load off the actual wall and puts the load back here up under the soil where it has a good hold.
So, I mean, after those are really stiff and rigid in place,
Right.
What else?
Then we come in with a backfill. We let that set up for a couple of days, and then we're free to put whatever backfill that we desire here.
Okay.
We usually bring the fill up a couple inches higher than the bulkhead because in time it'll settle.
Okay.
Or in other preparations, you know, if there was a compactor or something like that, it would take it down to whatever level that is needed.
Back to the shape, Mason, I noticed we saved the palm tree over there.
Yes, that was one of the things that Greg did not want to disturb.
Sure.
And luckily a palm is a pretty hardy tree, as you know. So
It'll take some construction around it.
It sure will, yeah. We scratched around there, but that's a nice little specimen, and we saved it. It's going to look good there in the hole.
Yeah, we hope to light it, use it as an additional focal point. Too.
Right.
Well, this thing is solid as Sears. I mean, it feels good, and I know you're proud of it.
Oh yeah, it's a
good-looking bulkhead.
It's a very good looking wall. Greg and Laura are very happy with what we've done. We're not quite through yet, but I'm sure the end product will come out just as they expected.
Yeah, and then with some of the corners and 90s, we hope to round that, even use landscape to kind of soften the whole picture.
Exactly. Greg wanted to use some circles and some straight lines just to break it up. It's just something that he had envisioned.
Right.
And he's the one that has to live with it, so we like to build it how the homeowners like
Yeah,
it.
no, that's great. That's great. So Mason, it looks like our next step is backfilling.
Correct.
We sure appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Oh, I invite you to come on up and take a look at how things have changed. This really helps give you a feel for the extra space that we've created and also the grade change that we still have to encounter. You can tell our door is somewhat, almost 3 feet up out of the ground, but I've leveled this. We've come in and raked it, smoothed it out, and so we really need to talk about how we're going to utilize this new space that we've created. And with a segmental retaining wall, we'll come in and make our grade change, well, from top to bottom. I think you can see that we want to use a smooth curve. Well, one of the situations to deal with here is that we create a little bit of a landing that's, well, large enough so we don't feel like we're going to fall right out of the door. So, and we've got to include some steps that come down towards you. So basically, an extension of our wall, if you look down here now, you can see that we're curving in and moving this way. The wall will actually become, if you will, the steps and stairs. We'll turn the first step, which will be up in this level, we'll turn it in toward the wall, and then the other two will come out, and I'm saying the other two, it may take about 3 steps, I'm figuring. So, 1, 2, 3, if you will. The wall level here, and then brick pavers go up into this nice landing area. So we'll feel nice and secure here, not like we're going to fall off the edge, and we'll round this. We'll have this landing in a curved linear pattern that'll return back to the house here, so a circular shape. Okay, if you can visualize the wall, the steps down, I want to take you up now. Let's draw our paver patio and our planting beds right here on this surface. I first begin by deciding where the pavers or patio stops or starts, and we've got somewhat of a natural area here with our wall, and so we'll come really right off this 45 mark. And so if you can visualize that now, this is where we'll walk onto the brick pavers. You'll have an option of going up the steps here or remaining on the patio. So with the squares, the corners, and a few 45s, again, our pavers do not have to take on that shape. As a matter of fact, we want to end up with some places here for landscape, and we've stubbed up for irrigation down around the corner because our wall is going to come up to this bulkhead. And let's save room for a planter. You see that pipe? There's another one here. And we'll build or develop a planter of this shape. So we've got irrigation stubbed out in here as a sleeve. You could tell too, where the walls come together now, we can soften this with landscape pavers that lead at the homeowner's request all the way to the bulkhead here. He's going to use this, they're going to use this as a bench, which is a great idea. It's here, it's at the right height, and it'll service them as a place to kind of casually relax here without having to have patio furniture necessarily. Well, if that's the case, then where do we stop or start? As you see, that pipe is our irrigation, and that's going to be in another bed. So somewhere in the center of this span, we'll come out with a little radius. And then, remember, we want to break the rules of the corners and 45s and 90s by coming in with a circular shaped pad, something like this, and then we'll end it somewhat central in this span. Now, we tried a few different shapes and we kind of erased them in the dirt. And this is what we feel will somewhat work, accommodate the bench, and allow us for low plantings here. By the time we're done, we want to be able to read or see the radius and how it works with the curved wall, so that with that French curve, this is somewhat of a lower extension of that same shape. And then the plants, if you will take on the shape of these square corners and allow our eye to mostly read the roundness of things. Well, this is a layout or a concept. What do you say now? We talk next about really the engineering part of it and how it's to be accomplished.
here's where we're going to have landscaping.
Friends, I want you to once again meet Mike Costello of Paver Systems. Mike has done a takeoff for us. Any problems in our design here or challenges?
No, I don't see any problems. It's a nice smooth radius we got going all the way around through here.
Good, good. And how tall is this wall going to be?
This wall is going to be about 3 foot right here against the house.
You know, what I was thinking with this taller wall, Mike, is, I mean, not limiting ourselves to any, you could come in with a lower planter or radius that tied right into that upper wall. In other words, you're standing in a
Middle of another planter?
yeah, like could be a lower wall, just a couple blocks, and then 3 or 4 blocks there.
Absolutely, it adds a lot of life and variation to your project, and you still have plenty of room out here.
I don't know if we have enough material for that or whatever, but what I wanted to do is at least show you that you don't have to have one single wall. Matter of fact, the terracing concept really adds a little more life, if you will, a little more depth.
Oh yeah,
Character.
absolutely.
What about the steps? Any special challenges there?
No, not really. Steps are one of those things that kind of like are put together like field engineering by your installer.
On-the-job training?
Yeah, and your installer, who you have a good one, will go ahead and make it to fit what you're trying to do here with the pavers and the steps and reach the necessary height to get to the door.
Yeah, okay, we'll see how that comes out. I mean, we're hoping for the best. And then our patio, this lower deck patio, square footage on that?
Approximately 350 square feet.
Okay. And this is the stone or the brick we've selected, huh?
Yeah, these are the Appian stones. The color is a brown chestnut, which will match the retaining wall, which we call tortoiseshell, but it's still a tan brown blend.
That's great.
And with the blends, it really goes good. And we're going to be using a pattern which has been known for a long time called mustard K or a T pattern.
Okay.
And it really lends itself to work well when you're working with radiuses because you don't have a lot of straight lines running in one direction or the other. So what we'll do is we'll take the rectangles and the squares, as you see, and this is how it gets its name, the T pattern.
Okay.
I have no idea where the mustard K came from. I think it was one of the manufacturers just said, well, let's call it this. And but anyways, as you see,
Starting to come together there.
and what will happen is as you go on here, you'll get to your edge. We'll cut the edges with a motor-driven saw, which will allow us to put a solid brown border all the way around that perimeter.
I like the border. I mean, because that's going to help us read the radius too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That brown border, which is the darker color in here, will show up real nice. It's not a highly visible accent, but it is enough of an accent to show you where your edges are.
I can't wait to see that done. Of course, we're going to kind of stand back and let you guys do your thing, and then we get to decorate that a little bit, huh?
Oh, it's going to look good when it's done.
Super. It's a pretty stone. Friend, you may remember Brian Collins of Custom Pavers, our contractor installer here. Brian, on a project like this, I mean, how do you know where to begin, really?
Well, something like this, you had to start up at the top. The first thing we had to do is get our retaining wall in and around, and then work our steps down to see where our lower landing was going to be.
Everything kind of works around the wall then?
Yeah, everything started with the wall. We had the wooden wall here, and we had an elevation to go off of, which we kept all the way around.
I love this little landing. I think it's plenty of room to feel safe about being up here.
Yeah, that was
Not too
one of
threatening.
the big concerns. You want to make sure when you come out the door, you don't feel like you're standing right on the edge.
Yes.
You have a little comfort zone to stand in. make
Good, and
yourself
then I think
comfortable.
the plants are going to help transition. One thing I watched you guys do is how you lined up exactly your paving patterns from the top all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, we take a string here and try to mimic it down on the lower area so that it flows consistent right down through.
Brian, even the steps, as nice as they look, a little bit of a challenge there.
A little bit of a challenge, yeah. Trying to, after we built the wall, then trying to build down to an elevation for our lower patio, and just trying to make sure that you have nice, even, comfortable steps as you're going down.
One thing I enjoy from a design standpoint, I know structurally that's where you guys were the masters, and it's almost not fair, but the curves with the upper deck. I mean, the steps are almost, I mean, you can see they're an extension of the wall that move these two surfaces together. I mean, a beautiful transition there.
Yeah, that radius has always caused a little bit of a challenge, but again, you get that much more design and outlook at the end. So trying to keep it going with the steps, and as it came down, getting bigger and bigger to give you more of a comfort level as you're walking down.
Very good. And I noticed too, the homeowner extended their little bench seating area where you have more surface there, less landscape. That's okay. But this came out nice, a place to hang out.
Oh yeah, this is great. I mean, this is a nice place to sit, and you can look over the marsh, or if you've got friends, you've got a nice area, plenty of area for people to sit in.
The other concept I think is neat is, like you said, 4 or 5 people can hang here, and you don't have to clutter your patio with furniture and chairs. I mean, there's already a place to
Yeah,
kind of...
exactly. Making it that much bigger, you took out the number of chairs that you had to have down here, and you can put a smaller table and really enjoy the deck a little more.
I like the radiuses, but the way this smooth curve works with the whole shape of the wall, it takes away the stiff corners and naturally gives us a place to decorate with plants. But wow.
Yeah, it's nice keeping in contrast with the way the wall is rounding around in the steps, keeping the outside of the patio just flowing right with it.
We call these complementary curves because they all work together.
Exactly. They all flow and make the outlook really.
But now with this border looking so perfectly formed, how do you guys do that?
Well, that's where some of the tricks of the trade come into play. What we do is we'll take a piece of PVC, usually about a 1/2 inch, anything smaller than that's nice. And you can just kind of put it down, and it bends, and you make a nice radius. And then what you do is just scribe on the outside of it with a pencil. And then you just run your saw right down on that pencil line, and that's how you get your curves.
So you cut that, and then you put your border on the outside.
Exactly. And then, as we go around, we have to cut some of the border pieces in order to keep them tight together when
But
they
that
flow around
saves
the
you from
radius.
measuring every little cut and having them a little bit off. It's
Right.
like, wow.
That PVC is a lifesaver when it comes to making curves.
Good to know. Brian, what a beautiful job you've done here. And I know the homeowners have already expressed their delight, but they'll enjoy this for years to come.
Yes, they will. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. With all the work done here today, we do well to go back and reflect on the entire hardscape installation. Enjoy the progress. Well, with our hardscape installed, now we can press on toward completion. That's why next Designer's Landscape. Until then, I'm Gary Allen. I'll see you soon.